Sometimes in your life, you'll have a desire to grow your own food. You'll wake up one day wanting to grow your own food and then realize you have never grown anything in your life and you have no idea how to grow your own food. If you're born after the internet was invented, your next step is to go online and search how to grow your own food. And then you'll be overwhelmed with the amount of information out there. There seems to be more than one way to start something and you're not quite sure what's the best way. Fortunately for me, I had more than enough seeds and I could afford to lose a couple to a bunch of experiments. And here are my results. Let's get a few things out of the way. What was I trying to grow? Some kind of peppers that I just had around the house. And what kind of weather did I have? Well, it was either hot or it was hot and raining. What kind of gardening experience did I have? I have never grown anything in my life. The paper towel method was the easiest to start with. I just needed a container, paper towel, seeds and water, and I had all of those. The instructions were pretty simple. I just needed to take a paper towel and spray it with water and make sure it's not too wet. I had to put the seeds on top of the paper towel and space them out so when the seeds start sprouting, they won't tangle together. And finally, I just had to take the paper towel, put it in my container, close it up really good, and find me a warm, dark place to house the seeds for the next 7 days. The weather is pretty hot, so I would say the room temperature would be warm enough. So I just slid the package carefully under a cabinet. First time I didn't have enough sealable bags, so I thought I'd be a genius and use anything I can find. And guess what happened to those seeds? The bag I couldn't close dried out and the plants were dead at that point. And the bag that I could close was so old that it actually grew mold. And those seeds are gone too. I was too embarrassed to give up on this method, so I tried again, this time with a clean lunchbox that I could close properly. This time I made sure to leave it alone for a few days and not check it like a maniac, and make sure it doesn't dry out completely either. And I had better results because 7 days later I got my first sprouts. However, I think I left these things alone for too long. They had grown so much by the time I checked up on them. So I had to be very careful to lift them off the paper towel. Next time I won't risk it because I'm so clumsy, and I found the hard way that you don't want to break these tiny roots. I'll just cut around the roots and plant it with a bit of paper I can deal with. I understand why you might want to use this method because it might be cold for you outside. It never happens for me, but I understand that you might want to start your seeds inside your house, and sometimes you might not have the pots and containers ready for your plants. So this will give you extra 7 days to start your seeds, like to gather everything together. But for me, I don't think I'll be doing it the next time. It was just too much of an hassle, and there's some of my seeds after I transplanted them died, so I think I'm better off just planting it in soil and letting them grow on soil. So again, my setup was simple. I had a bucket with a hole on the bottom, into which I added a layer of rocks. And because I wasn't sure if I had enough compost, I filled the next layer with a lot of garden soil that I had, and then the rest with compost. Now the compost that I had was actually a lot of I believe it's a lot of cow manure, and it was sort of chunky. And on top of the compost I added the seeds and then covered it with a layer of compost. I don't think I did a good job of covering the seeds, because in the next few days I realized when I was watering that some of the seeds had become uncovered. And then I waited and almost gave up waiting and moved on to other methods because it was not giving me any results for 2 whole weeks. And as I said, after 2 weeks it did start sprouting, and obviously the ones that were uncovered didn't sprout. So yeah, cover your seeds with soil very well, I guess. And I did read some articles about using compost as a starting medium, and everybody sort of said that it's not a great idea because there might be diseases that little seedlings can't deal with when you're using compost, and compost is just too dense for little roots to I mean little seeds to grow roots. So overall I wouldn't be using this method the next time, although I did get plants from this method, and if it's the only thing you have, I guess it will work, but there are better methods out there. As I said the last time as well, the thing that gave me the most result is just using the garden soil that I had at hand. Honestly, I started it because I was curious. I knew things can grow in the garden soil I had. I didn't know exactly how healthy it was, but I knew things did grow. For example, we have currently eggplants and um, beans and other things that are growing just fine. So I wanted to try. My setup wasn't anything fancy, so when I say I have used garden soil, we have two kinds of soil in our garden. One is a more of a light brown colored soil with a lot of rocks and gravel, and the other is a rich more black color. That one was what I was going to use in the bag that I was going to fill with soil, but I added a layer of that light colored soil as well, just because I had it and I was curious. Because I couldn't not do any mistakes, the biggest mistake I did this time was adding too much seeds into the bag, and I mentioned it the last time as well. I ended up with I think 15 sprouts, two of which I killed when I attempted to transplant it to somewhere else, and the rest I let them grow until I could safely transplant at least some of them to a bigger pot. So next time, other than using the garden soil that I have, I'm curious about trying the double cup method with bottom watering, because one of the huge issues that I had was watering. Sometimes I feel like I am using too much water, so I think by using the bottom watering method I could control the amount of water being added to the soil, which will probably help my seedlings grow stronger and better. And I didn't know that we had any gardening mix in the country, but I searched around afterwards. But since we are a country of a lot of coconut trees, there are a lot of potting mixes with coconut fibers. So I'm curious to try one of those as well. But for now, these are the things that I tried, and I hope it helps somebody start gardening as well.